I'm going to tell your audience right now, your first property is going to be your worst property because you just don't have enough information.
Welcome to The Hard Truth, here with Danielle Chiasson.
I come from a really blue collar, poor background. I mean, I grew up literally I was a welfare child. When I was 27 years old, I bought my first property. I'm the accidental landlord. So when I bought my property, I did 3 or 4 different strategies in the first property without even realizing it. So I flipped for 5 years. 2020 happened and I decided I wanted to go and build my portfolio and just put more into my portfolio. And then from there, I just started buying properties. So I went on a buying spritz, but I was a landlord. So I did 10 years of just buying properties as a landlord. I just did acquisitions.
Welcome to The Hard Truth, here with Danielle Chiasson. We are going to dive into all things real estate, talking about different strategies, decades worth of experience in real estate, coaching, the market, all sorts of stuff. So make sure to stay tuned. You're going to get a ton of value from this episode. All right, Danielle, let's get to know you. Tell us about your background, pre-real estate, how you got into real estate, and your journey through real estate.
Well, how far back do we go? Okay, so I wasted my 20s.
Okay.
I was in the service industry and spent a lot of time in the bars and lived my life and don't regret a minute of it. I probably spent way too much money on alcohol that I'd like to care. But at the end of the day, once I settled down, I decided I wanted to do something, started building a family, and was helping my former life partner build his businesses and kind of got so far with that. And we were buying real estate in the interim. When I was 27 years old, I bought my first property.
Okay. Was that just a house to live in?
Yeah, so this is kind of a fun story. I'm the accidental landlord. So when I bought my property, I actually bought it. I did 3 or 4 different strategies in the first property without even realizing it. And before they were even coined terms. So I did house hacking.
Okay.
I did a joint venture. I did private lending. I did conversions, all in one thing. And I also flew under the radar. I can't tell you on this podcast how we got the financing for 2 properties at the same time, but we kind of flew under the radar and got financing on 2 properties at the same time.
Got it.
Which was just some creative financing. But at the end of the day, yeah. So I did creative financing, privately, I did all of that. So what I did was, I had the money, but I didn't have the credit. And it's the other way around. I had the credit, but I didn't have the income because I was in the service industry.
Right.
My best friend had the income, but she didn't have the credit. So that's how we came together.
Got it.
And I got some money from angel investors for the down payment, and then we went shopping, and initially we were just going to buy 1 property. I did say, just logic, it's what happens is you think, okay, well, if we live upstairs and rent the basement, it'll help pay for the mortgage. But then I got to thinking about it. I'm like, what's going to happen if we want to part ways? I can't cut a house in half. And I thought, this is going to get messy. So I remember walking into my mortgage broker's office and saying, Debbie, we need 2 properties. And she's like, well, Danielle, you guys only qualify for 1. I go, well, it's 2 or none, figure it out. And I left. And I was 27 and I might have been a little bit aggressive about it. So she quickly came up with a plan and we were able to buy the 2 properties. So what we did is we put 1 under my name, which was an investment property, but that was my primary. And we made sure it had an in-law suite. We duplexed that. And then we moved into the other house, which was the same, was a bungalow with a basement suite. And then we ended up converting that one. We lived upstairs and rented out the downstairs. So that's how I literally got into it. And then I got pregnant and then realized, well, the upstairs, a 3-bedroom unit with my best friend and her boyfriend and my boyfriend and all of that wasn't really working out. So we ended up buying a condo. And then from there, I just started buying properties. But I was a landlord. So I did 10 years of just buying properties as a landlord. So what do? The old fashioned way, you buy property, get a down payment, buy it, and make sure that the numbers make sense to cover the mortgage, the expenses. And after 5 years, you can just extract that equity and multiply into 2 properties. Take 1, multiply into 2, but that is so slow.
Well, and there was no YouTube University.
There was nothing back then. No, we're talking 2003 was my first.
You're just kind of shooting at the hip here. This feels right. These numbers make sense.
I didn't even know. It was so scary, Kyle. The word mortgage. I come from
debt pledge. is the translation for mortgage, in case anyone was wondering.
There it is, right? And when you come from, I mean, I come from a really blue collar, like poor background. I mean, I grew up, a little bit about me you wanted to know, like literally, like I was a welfare child. My grandmother raised me. My mother had me she was pregnant at 15, had me at 16. And she went off to do her life. My grandmother raised me, but my grandmother was separated and we were just bouncing from one rental to another to another. And so like I grew up in rentals. I grew up on like hand-me-down clothes and, shoes that didn't fit. And I was a happy kid, don't get me wrong. Like my grandmother loved me and I was fed and all of that, but definitely below, I guess income that so my grandmother always had 2 jobs, and I had my aunt that's 6 years older than me with that, and so I the word mortgage, the reason why it's so scary is because nobody owned a house. My grandfather in my family is the only one that owned a house, but he never had a mortgage. His father built that house, and it was a really old house, nothing fancy. And so the word mortgage, nobody owned a house, and just the thought of like borrowing that much money was mind-blowing. And like, how do you do that? And what if you can't pay? And what is a mortgage? The word amortization, I couldn't even say it. Never mind, like, understand
You almost put
it.
A little French on that.
Well, even now, right? Even now I have to like catch myself. So it was a really big move. And even like when we had our realtor, if I hadn't have bought with my best friend was my JV partner, right, on the first 2 properties. If I hadn't have bought with my best friend, I don't know, like, she was the one that I was traveling, and she was the one that was going and looking at the houses and having the conversations with the realtor. And, I kind of was in the background and making decisions, but I don't know, like, it just, if it wasn't for that realtor that took the time to explain to us what we could and couldn't do and help guide us. And I don't even know that he guided us well, because we didn't know anything at that point. So any guidance was welcome. But I just knew, I'm a very logical thinker, and I just knew it made sense. Get a mortgage, fine, but you need to make sure you can pay that mortgage. And so having that income on that property made sense. We call it house hacking now. That term was never around. Like you said, we didn't have YouTube. I think we had MSN at that point, ICQ or whatever. Like the internet, we weren't even Googling things, I don't think, in 2003. Like it was just the internet. And it was definitely an experience. I would do it all over again, 100%. But, you have to take the risks in order to get the rewards. And that's true today. But with education now, you can be more intentional. And like with my students, the biggest thing that I teach them now is let's be strategic, let's be intentional, so that whatever your goals are in alignment. What you're doing today will get you there. And you're just not doing what I did and just trying to make it work blindly and taking risks that maybe you don't need to be taking.
It's so true. People ask me, is this a good investment? Is that a good investment? And the answer is probably, maybe not, maybe it isn't, but that's not the question. Does it align with you?
That's right.
Is this investment going to reach your end goal? I know some people get frustrated with like, oh, they're asking me my why and my goals. Well, it's to make sure the stuff you're doing actually makes sense. And you got to really think about where you want to be in 5 and 10 years, what your life looks like then. Do these investments align? So
it's so critical. Like we call it reverse engineering real estate. Right?
Yeah.
Like reverse engineering real estate, RERE. And the reason why we want to do that is exactly what you said. So that way we don't start going down this path and then have to make a massive pivot in order for it to work. You're always going to have to pivot, and you want to be fluid, but you don't want to have to make these massive changes. And what we do and I see it so often, because we'll do a portfolio review where people kind of hit a ceiling. They're like, I don't know what to do. Well, then we pull everything in, we look at their whole situation, and we kind of like really take a big picture look at it. And then we're like, okay, well, that's impeding you, that's impeding you, that's impeding you. Okay, let's restructure that. But doing all of that is a ton of work. But if you're intentional from the get-go, and you have your goals in mind and use that as your North Star, to guide all of your decisions as you're doing what it is you're doing, then it's small pivots and it's not so painful, and there's not opportunity cost to that, because it's not really impeding you and holding you back, because you have to do this whole restructuring and refinancing, designing of your whole portfolio, right?
Some people who are listening that might not resonate as much, but I know there's people listening being like, oh, I wish I heard this 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
Right? If you've never gone, like you never gone through that pain, the feeling of being stuck or in the wrong direction, or you went right and you look back and you're like, I should have went left. Right there, when you know you missed, this type of conversation will really, really resonate with you. So.
And that's why they say your network is your net worth, because it'll help guide you down the right path.
Yep.
Right? And mentors are really important. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't want to hire a coach, you don't want to be more structured around that, that's okay. But find somebody who can help mentor you, or find a group that you can post some questions in. The thing about, it's great that we have so much information right now, but a lot of the students that I see coming to us now are more confused than ever, because there's so much out there that they don't know where to even start. And then it just becomes a big mishmash in their brain of like the BRRRR strategy, conversions, multifamily, like ADUs, and then they just don't even know which direction to go in anymore. And the beautiful thing about having a coach or a mentor is that they're going to actually just make it a little bit more simple. So what we do, we're not giving you information that's not already available out there on the internet. We just package it in a way that is digestible, that makes sense, and then you can make a smart decision moving forward. So we want to offer you clarity. We don't want to confuse you, right?
How long have you been coaching for?
That's a great question. My career started as a real estate investor, started in 2013. So I bought my first property in 2003.
Yeah.
And then I was buying properties after that and renting them out, as I had told you. But then I did my own mentoring. There was a group in the States at the time there was nothing up here in Canada. I went down to the States to study, and it was fortune builders. Okay. So they had come up here. I think they only did 2. They came back for a 3rd one, actually, where they had like a conference. And it's like, Keith Spire's done that, and Rich Dad Poor Dad, they've all done that.
HGTV star coming to your town.
Right? Yeah. So they've all done that. And actually, my mentor from Fortune Builders, they originally did back in the early 2000s, it was A&E Flip This House. Right. And they were on that show. They were the original contractors on that show, and then that's how they kind of came up. But in any event, so it's the same kind of thing as like Keith Spire. They came up here. I signed up at the time because 2013, we were going, after 2008, our dollar was at par. So they were offering their thing for 20,000 US, which was, no, I think it was 25. It was 25,000 US, which was at the time I could get in Canadian dollars at par. So I felt like I was getting a deal. And then I said to myself, you know what? And they were at the beginning of their journey, and their primary thing was just teaching about flipping, which my former life partner was contractor, and I was looking to do something for myself, and I've always, loved real estate, and I was like, you know what? If I invest in this, I flip one house and I make $25,000, I can decide at that point if I want to continue doing this, or if it's not my thing, then I've just learned a bunch of stuff about construction and real estate and whatnot. And I've now decided, it's one way to find out that maybe it's not for me, which wasn't the case, because here I am. So that was the beginning of my journey. And so I bought into this program, went down to the States. We did a lot, so much lessons, I just learned so much. They were the launching pad, and it was a massive launching pad, and they're why I'm here today. And it's exactly that. They just took all of the information, packaged it, and said, you got to do this, 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 X, Y, Z. And essentially it's your blueprint, and you just follow that model, and then you make it your own as you go down the journey. So
I want to ask you, because a lot of Canadian real estate investors don't have very good things to say about the U.S. programs. Okay. And that's not what I heard at all here.
No.
Was it that your program was it different, or is it the same thing with a lot of things? It's what you do with it.
There's a lot to unpack there. There's so much to unpack there.
Because so many people are like, the U.S. companies that come up here, but I've heard some great success stories.
Yes.
And what you just said was very positive.
Yes. So it's both. You have to find a great company and you have to implement.
Right.
Because knowledge without implementation is just education.
Right.
Never going to be successful. And we vet who we take into our program. If you're not going to do the work, if you're not going to commit, then we don't want you. And that's selfish of me. The reason why is because I know if you're not committed and you're not willing to do the work, it's not going to be successful for you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to blame me. It's going to be my company that gets the hit on that, because you're going to be like, yeah, I signed up for strategic success, and yeah, it just wasn't that great. I didn't get anywhere with it. I know. I mean, I have dozens and dozens and dozens of success stories. I know it works when you do the work.
Right.
But when it comes to real estate, there's a lot of people. And I mean, I remember back in the day, you're going to laugh at me. When I was even younger, there was Carlton Sheets.
Okay.
With, I don't know, I'm aging myself now, but there was Carlton Sheets, and it was all of these CDs and stuff. And I remember buying that. I mean, I've had an interest in real estate since I was 19 years old, and somebody talked me out of it at that time, and I was too impressionable at that time. But I remember buying this program, Carlton Sheets, actually really good information, but I didn't do anything with it. And it just collected dust under my desk in a box after I listened to a couple of CDs, and that was it. If you don't do the work, it's not going to work. So that's number one. Number two, not all programs are great. So I'll give it that. Not all programs are great. Not all coaches are great. It's like not all contractors are great. Not all mortgage brokers are great. But you know what I mean? Not all realtors are great. So not all lawyers are great. And so it does matter. You have to find the one that is actually going to deliver what you're looking for. And if you have an idea of what your goal is, then you can narrow down which program to look at. But so many people buy on emotion, and they don't actually do the work to do the vetting. They don't do the research and the due diligence that they need to be doing on their mentor, the same way you would on a house that you're probably looking at buying. You need to do your due diligence on your mentor too, or on that course, before you go investing $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And I will tell you, being in this industry, you're in this industry, we both know there's some players that are maybe not performing at such a high threshold. I mean, our standards are high. For me, it's all about the client journey, and your success is my success. At the end of the day, like, I have a front row seat to your journey. I'm sitting in the passenger side, and all I'm doing is I have a map, and I go, well, you could go left, and these are the obstacles you're going to have, or you can go right, and this is what you might potentially run into. But you're in the driver's seat, and you get to decide, but at least the blinders are off, and you're making an educated decision. But the beautiful thing for me is that I'm sitting there and I get to enjoy the journey with you. And so when you're successful, I'm successful, and we're all about promoting that in our community anyway. But there's a lot of, and it's not necessarily, my program may not be a good fit for somebody, right? So I'm not saying ours is going to be helpful to everybody. It depends on who you are, and that's why we have discovery calls, and we meet and see what your situation is like, and we go from there. If it's not a good fit, and I think somebody else could help you, I do refer people, and like, some people want just capital raising, and there's somebody that I know that does very well in that, and that I know has a great program, we'll refer, because our focus isn't just capital raising. But if somebody comes to us with that, yeah, I could say, sure, I'll teach you capital raising, but that's not our focus, and I would be doing them a disservice, right? And so I think, to answer your question, there's some great programs out there, there's some not so great programs, but it doesn't matter what program you buy into. If you're not going to do the work, you're not going to find success.
I think that's such a great due diligence question that people who are vetting a coach can ask. If you say, well, I'm thinking about doing this, and I'm thinking about doing this, like, oh, I can help you with that. I can help you with that. I can help you with that. Well, maybe not. Like, way you said, like, this is more my lane. If you want to go that lane, I'll refer you to somebody. Just like you said, a good mortgage broker. I say that all the time. Like, I can do commercial financing. I refer to strategic partners depending on your commercial file. I can do first-time home buyers. It's been a long time. I refer those to another agent. I specialize in a specific lane in private lending, acquisition, mortgages. I stay in my lane, and I refer to my partners on other sides. So it's a good vetting that you can do when you're vetting a coach, to see, are they willing to just take anyone? Because that's a red flag. Are they vetting you as well? I think it's super important.
It is super important. And really, so I call it the yeah people. I personally, when I'm vetting for anybody, contractors, lawyers, like, from professionals to trades to coaches to anybody, if they're a well, this is what I need. Are you able to do that? Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. And it's like, then I'll start going kind of out in left field to see if they're still saying, yeah, no problem.
Right.
Like,
Are you even listening?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
they just want to say yes to get the job.
Yeah.
And then what happens is now they've got the contract, whatever that contract is, or the job, whatever it is, and now they're not performing. And unfortunately, most people, when things don't go their way, they blame external circumstances. And they're like, oh, I hired this contractor. He said he could do this. He said he could do that. And then they blame the contractor for not delivering. And I say there's a little bit of ownership that you have to take when you have to look at how well did you do your due diligence? How many contractors did you talk to? Was this really the best person for you?
Right.
And you have to take some ownership for that. And just like hiring a mentor, getting a mortgage broker, a realtor, I get really frustrated when residential realtors are taking on multifamily projects. Like, that really upsets me. It really upsets me because they are doing a disservice to the client. Because there's things that they're going to miss because there are nuances when it comes to multifamily. If you don't run it every day, you're going to miss it. It's simple.
100%.
And the same thing with realtors that, they're doing cottages in the Muskokas, but they live here in Kitchener. Come on, like, there's going to be flood zones, there's going to be issues with the ground and, whether or not you can build because of the rock beds, and there's things that they don't know. And that bothers me. And even within municipalities, they're selling cottages in, municipalities where maybe the buyers are looking, or, they want to do Airbnb, and they go, yeah, you could do that, no problem. Well, there's some municipalities where they've X that, but they're just not in the know because that's not their grounds, that's not their stomping grounds. And so the biggest thing, and these are things that a mentor I call it taking the blinders off. These are the things that mentors can help guide you so that you don't deal with the person that's a great talker and that promised you the world, right? It's like, well, no, I have a rule of 3, and I tell all my students, I have a rule of 3, vet 3 people. You want at least 3 written quotes if you're dealing with contractors. You want to talk to at least 3 mortgage brokers and feel them out and see what they say. And then you can compare. Everybody, like, I remember having to do dental surgery once, and I had to deal with you assume in your brain, you're like, they went to school, they're an orthopedic surgeon, they can do the work, but just because they can doesn't mean they're doing it well.
Right.
So talking to 2 or 3 of them now gives you, it kind of paints the picture for you. And then you can really find out which one actually has been doing it for a long time. Maybe the specific dental work is something that they do often. Maybe they've only done it once or twice. Like, then you can really get to feel them instead of just taking a referral like that. I don't know. Like, I just think I'm all about being proactive, because when you're being proactive, you're going to see things before, like, you're just going to solve problems before they become a problem, right?
I'm hearing you talk about this. I've recently had to, I had to find a retirement home for my dad, and I've been dealing with that the last 2 weeks. And in my world today, I don't deal with a whole lot of new things. I'm very much in my, like, I don't want to say it's the same thing every day, but I don't feel like a fish out of water very often. Like, I'm an expert in my field, I'm in my world, and this is a whole new world for me. Like, and I'm going through these sales pitches at these different homes, but it's amazing, by the time I've been to my 4th and 5th, the questions I'm asking, now I'm learning, now I'm doing better, and I want to go back to the first one because I've learned things from the 2nd and 3rd. It's so important that you have to do this stuff. You have to, the rule of 3 is about just as much about getting the information, but getting yourself up to speed. Because going through this, I've been to 6 homes now, and like I said, I kind of want to go back to the first one, because now that I know this, and this, I have new questions for them. So I really related to that, hearing.
I love that.
Yeah, going through this. So cool. So 23rd, I think we kind of got off topic, which is standard, as Peter will attest to. 2013, you got educated.
Yeah.
You invested in education, and you we talked about a little bit your coaching today, but let's fill in that gap.
Yeah. So 2013. So prior to this is the milestone for me when I started with Fortune Builders, because before 2013, I was an amateur investor, aka landlord.
Yep.
And then post 2013, after I got some education and I started doing things more intentional, with more strategy, with more thought behind it, that's when I became a sophisticated investor, because now I started learning what was out there. I started learning the lingo. I wasn't just buying a house and putting tenants in it, essentially, right? And so 2013, it was August of 2013. And then I had slated 12 to 18 months just to educate, because they had a lot of content and I knew that. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to dive into all of that and then I'll start implementing. It took 2 years. So I bought my first flip in September of 2015. I bought my second flip in October of 2015.
Took a while to get going, but when you got going,
But then I had everything in place. I had the confidence, because here's the thing, like, people don't pull the trigger and they wonder, like, okay, you know what, like, I want to do this and everybody wants to do it, but nobody pulls the trigger. Why don't people pull the trigger? I can make you pull the trigger. You know why? Because I'm going to give you the confidence that you need in order to make the right decision to pull the trigger.
Right.
If you don't know, then you don't have the confidence. And we all know it's big risk in real estate. We're dealing with big numbers. And so if you don't have the confidence to make the right decision, then you're just not ever going to make a decision. So what we want to do is we want to offer up some information, get that knowledge, so that now you can make an informed decision to go ahead and move forward in something. And I'm going to tell your audience right now, your first property is going to be your worst property. Why is that? Because you just don't have enough information. But the purpose of that property is to get in the game. That is your lesson. You're going to get in there, you're going to make some mistakes. It's not going to be great. However, the education before you pull the trigger on that first property will minimize any risk. It'll minimize losses. You don't want to just go out there and say, well, Danielle said, you know, it doesn't matter anyway because it's going to be my worst property. You still want to make smart decisions.
Yeah, of course.
However, you're going to learn a lot on the first property.
Yeah.
And then with subsequent properties, you're going to be a little bit smarter, and therefore your first property typically is your worst.
It's a muscle. You got, like,
It is.
It's a muscle. Once you start working it gets stronger. You feel more confident. So
Yeah.
okay. So
then 2015, I bought my first flip, which was a tax sale, bought blind in Port Hope, Ontario, which is about 2 hours east of Toronto. And then I bought my second flip in Sarnia, Ontario, which is 2.5 hours.
So logistically, we're doing real well here.
Actually 3 hours from Toronto. Not listening to my mentor, I will say. And that was, sometimes you have to learn the hard way. I am sometimes that person, more often than I want to admit. And my mentor said, look, when you invest in properties, especially flipping, because we were focused on flipping, when you're flipping, you don't want to be more than a half an hour radius from where you are. Because you're going to be going to that property a lot. You're going to be vetting contractors, you're going to be, buying supplies, you're going to be dropping by, you're going to be taking pictures, you're going to be meeting the property inspector. There's a lot that's happening on a flip. And so what I did is I chased the numbers instead. And I went opposite. And I bought tax sales, which I bought them both blind, a little bit cocky on my end, and they were just a disaster. I made money on them both. However, I learned a lot. The biggest lesson though is pick one market, focus on that market. You're going to build your team there. You're going to, I had to learn the hard way. So I got those properties under my belt. And then I quickly went to the map and I said, okay, what's 30 minutes from where my hub is? And actually I had 7 municipalities. Hamilton was one of them. And that's where I ended up flipping for 5 years. So, and then I built a team, and it was so much better because, like, when you're in Port Hope and then you take the time to vet a plumber, you take the time to vet a carpenter, you take the time to vet a flooring guy. I had mold issues that I had to deal with. And so all of that required, the rule of 3, all of that requires a lot of time. And then I was doing the same thing in Sarnia. Guess what? I've not been to either of those municipalities since. So all of that work, vetting great people, was really lost. It was great for the projects, but when you're in one market, then I was able to reuse those guys, and then, like, things were just flowing a lot easier, right? So I flipped for 5 years. COVID happens, which, by the way, I had a burnout. And I just had a lot going on because I was doing everything. I had an assistant, but I was doing all of the underwriting. So I was finding the properties, I was underwriting, then I was doing all the closing, I was doing the scope of work, vetting the contractors, managing the budgets, managing the contractors, and then on the back end, getting it ready for sale, selling it, like and then doing that on multiple projects. It was a lot. And so I burnt out, and then COVID happened, and we had the 2-month shutdown in March of 2020. And when you're busy, you just don't even have time. Like, I was in reactive mode. I was just doing what I needed to do and doing what I need to do. And when we shut down for those 2 months, I had 2 projects on the go, 2 in the pipeline that I was about to start. Couldn't start those ones because they weren't even looking at permits. The other 2, I had permits on them, and I had done the demo, and I was waiting for my permit approvals, and they shut down days before I got the approval. So I was devastated. I'm not used to sitting at home, but I needed that break. And I'll tell you what, the universe gives you what you need when you need it. And at that point, I realized, like, I was spinning my wheels in the mud, and I wasn't really, my mentor, Than Merrill, he told me, when you're flipping, for every 4 or 5 properties you flip, you want to put one in your portfolio. And I was doing that, but it was a slow build into my portfolio. So in 2020, and at that point, I was coaching, I was speaking on stages like I've been doing. I think, one of your staff here talked about OREC, which was, I think, 2018. And, I was on the stage there, and, and I was the accidental coach, because I get off stage, can you show me how you do this? Can you teach me that? And so 2020 happened, and I decided I wanted to go and build my portfolio and just put more into my portfolio. So I went on a buying spritz, and I just did acquisitions and did what I knew. I bought distressed properties to redo and burr them out. That was a strategy. So that was 2020. I wrapped up those 2 projects. I offloaded the 2 that were in the pipeline, and I did a wholesale on those 2 and just sold them to other people who were flipping, and they did great on those projects. And then I just bought a bunch of properties after that, and went on a buying spree for a couple of years. And then 2022 hit and just devastated everybody. Right? And I had projects that I hadn't finished, and now the numbers didn't make sense. And partnerships, in tough times, it's like a marriage. So partnerships, there was some friction there. And so there was a lot of jigging and boy, everything you go through, you learn. There's just a lot to learn. And, and there was things that I had been humbled on, because I'm coaching people saying, make sure you have, everything on paper and your partnership's on paper. Well, guess what? I have a partnership that's not on paper. And I'm like, now I'm eating my own words, and it's like, and it's humbling. And so we've had our challenges. I've had my challenges, during, post, and, COVID. But during all of that, through COVID, there was a lot of new investors who had given up their jobs and bought 2-3 properties. And I know you can relate to this. Then all of a sudden they're coaches, and they're charging ridiculous amount of money. They're not delivering. And coming back to what you were talking about, not everybody's a great coach. Not everybody's a great realtor. Not everybody's a great lawyer. And I was having people coming to me and crying, saying, this person took 20 grand and now they're ghosting me. This person took this much. They told me to do this. I did that. And now I'm in trouble financially. And I was helping people left, right, and center. And really our industry was I felt at that time, the integrity of our industry was really on the line. And I said, people need a place they can go to that they can trust, where they can get what they've asked for, and really do it safely. So I was doing one-on-one coaching at the time, and I was doing it under the brand Strategic Success. I reached out to my now partner, Corey McKinnon, who was doing coaching, and he was one of the best, if not the best coach at the time. And we just had this conversation. And he was doing it based on principles, based on fundamentals, and he had a beautiful structure with a coaching team. I wanted to do one-to-many. I had this big vision. I am a visionary. I had this big vision of putting all of the best people in the industry under one umbrella, so people could come and get solid coaching and mentoring. And so that's where I shifted my attention, going, 2022, I enrolled Corey. We started dating. So when you start with a partner, you got to date them first. Don't just jump into a partnership. Like, why is it people just like, oh, you got money? Oh, I got deals. Okay, let's do this.
We met at a conference this weekend. Let's get married for 10 years.
What is that?
Yeah.
What is that? So I tell people, look, you want to date, you want to do a JV partnership. If you're doing, you got a capital partner and you got a working partner, guys, do one deal. Do a JV partnership, do a couple of those, date first. See how it goes. Continue dating till there's a little bit of friction. Once you have that friction, you're going to see how you're communicating with each other. You're going to see if you're working together. That's really where you see if you're compatible or not. Because when things are good, everybody's happy. It has to be like when there's some friction, how do we deal with things? Are you just going to be selfish and look out for yourself, or are you going to be a team player here and let's work through this together? And this is true with all relationships, not just business relationships, but even personal relationships, right? And so have that, timeline. So Corey and I dated, and then we went and decided, let's make this official. And we ended up partnering officially after about 18 months, almost 2 years of working together and just testing each other out, seeing our work ethics, our integrity, and our core values, make sure everything was in alignment. And so the strategic success is where I spend the bulk of my time now.
Amazing. Yeah. I want to talk about strategic success and a little bit about some of your long-term rentals, but I've given this a few different times on the podcast, but you said wait until there's friction before you go farther. Mm-hmm. One of the tips that I've always suggested, and I personally do, when I'm going to partner with somebody, typically Chelsea and I will go out with another couple, and at the dinner table, before we've partnered, I bring up religion and politics.
That's a good one.
To create the friction.
I love that.
Because I want it before anything's signed, and I care less if we agree about the religion or politics. Can we disagree and still be friends? That's so I actually almost intentionally try to create the friction, so I'm not into we haven't moved in together, not got married, but there's no toothbrush at my house, and now we're seeing friction for the first time and finding out. So
I love that. Yeah. I'm gonna steal that.
It's a good one. I've been giving that one for a few years.
It's called creative theft. There's nothing out there. Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's good. Brilliant. It's worked out really well for me, and I think I've dodged some bullets, and I've got some really good partnerships from it. So talk to me about, you bought a portfolio in 2022. You mentioned the challenges. What advice have you personally followed from yourself that you give to other people? Yeah. Like, how have you navigated this? Like, there was a saying for a while, survive till 2025. Mm. Now it's survive 2026. Like, how are you holding, like, how are you managing this? How are you mitigating your risks moving forward? What are you doing?
It's a loaded question. Yeah. So the first part of your question is, what are the things that I do that I tell others that I do. So I'm really big on practicing what you preach. I'm really big on speaking from experience. And the biggest thing I'm sorry, Kyle, that this won't be the podcast that is first heard, because I say this everywhere. It's that important, and I do live by these principles, is the rule of 3. Mm-hmm. It's so important to me. Like, I don't know that I have a conversation where I don't bring it up. And I love what you had said about what you're doing with the old folks home. Like, you're on your 6th one. And I say a rule of 3, but the more important it is to you, the more you should be vetting. Or the more new it is to you, the more you should be vetting, because of that education component. That's your on-the-job training. And so I'm really big on doing that with lawyers. I remember when I split, I have 3 children with my former life partner, and I think I talked to 7 family lawyers, and exactly what you had said. It's like, by the time I got to the 3rd and 4th, I now had educated questions for those people based on the conversations I had. I had never gone through anything like that before, and didn't know what my rights were, and it was scary. I didn't know what my future looked like and all of that. So, like, when it's really important to you, and if you really don't know anything about the subject matter, then you got to go deeper with it. But I always have a rule of 3. So that's one that I practice regardless. When I get a quote for plumbing, my property managers hate it, because now I'm at a point, because I know what I'm doing. If I see recently I had a plumbing quote. had a plumbing quote for $17,000. I'm like, I can do the whole unit for $17,000. What are you talking
That's a
about?
replacement cost.
That's like, what are you
new,
talking
full new
like,
muffin, yeah.
So we got from 17,000 to 7,600, and I ended up paying $852 or something like that. Can you believe that? So, but I know what I'm doing. So anyway, but I still got 3, and my property manager was like, well, I trust this person. This is my go-to person. I'm like, well, we're gonna test the waters a little bit. And so rule of 3 is really important to me. The other thing, which kind of ties into this one, is 3 words that I paid $25,000 for. Somebody else that I got mentorship from. Won't say the name because it wasn't a great mentorship, and I did pay $25,000 for it, but I would do it again. I got 3 words from it that was hammered home: trust but verify. And that's something that I live by. It's a principle that I absolutely live by, that I teach my students, everybody, my kids. I even, trust but verify. And what that means is, because we don't want to like say, hey, Kyle, I don't trust what you're doing. I'm going to go like, it's not that. I trust that you know what you're doing. I trust you're giving me the best information that you have in front of you, but let me go verify that. And so you want to go and validate what people tell you. Just don't take it at face value. And so trust but verify saved me in a lot of times, like even especially if you're running the numbers. Gosh, Kyle, how many times do we have people that come to us with a file and they put a property under contract and they want to do a conversion? They're like, yeah, my realtor told me it would cost $35,000 to finish the basement into a separate unit. Are you kidding me? $35,000? Did you verify?
2004?
Yeah, right? It's like, did you trust but verify that? Like, did you get another quote from an actual contractor? And how many quotes did you get? Yeah. So you want to trust but verify. So that's a big one for me that I absolutely live by. Those would be the top 2 that I would tell you. Any other principles that I live by? Yeah, you want to vet. Due diligence is so important. That again ties into these things. And the other thing that I live by is core values. Like we're in the people industry, and you really have to vet the people you're going to do business with. And for me, what's important is core values: integrity, honesty, transparency, humility. Those are all so important, and an ability to communicate. So, if they've got ego, I'm like, okay, nice to meet you, and we'll be acquaintances. I'll probably not do business with people with ego. Mm-hmm. And that's because people with ego will make big mistakes. And I don't want to have to be on that end of it, because they don't have the ability to say, I think I was wrong. Because ego kind of gets in the way of being able to do that. And it also gets in the way of great relationships, because they can't say, I'm sorry.
Right.
And so those are really core values. So core values are really important to me. That is like when we do our program, that is core principles in our program. It's like, hey, what core values are important to you? You need to know that so you can align with people that have the same core values and principles. And it's really hard to do business with people that don't share the same core values.
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Where do you see, because the first question I like to ask is like, where do you see real estate going? So shine off the crystal ball. But like, where do you see the coaching industry going? Because there's a lot of coaches who aren't standing anymore.
Yeah.
So, and the biggest thing that, we're talking to somebody like yourself and the handful of other coaches that I've had on here, Corey being one of them, is like, they're like 20 plus year experience. Like the coaches who aren't, people are like, people who are coaches, it's not working. Yeah, because they were in real estate for 30 seconds and started coaching.
Yeah.
So it's all the 20-year people. But where do you see the coaching in real estate and business going? And then second to that will be the real estate question.
Well, let me tell you, and if I was being completely honest and transparent with you, I'm worried. I'm worried about the coaching industry and what we're doing. Everything that I've built over the last 5 years on the coaching business, everything, like all the structure and everything that we've done, because we are going into a new era with AI. And It never really was an issue for me until recently with AI. Like with a lot of coaches, even back like 6-7 years ago, they're like, oh, everything's on the internet, nobody's going to want coaching. That's not true, because we curate the content. We don't, like, yes, there's nothing that I'm going to tell you you can't get somewhere on the internet, but are you going to get it in a way that is digestible, where it makes sense and you can fit it properly into your journey and your life and your goals and all of that? Probably not. Will you be able to accelerate the process by watching podcasts and YouTube channels and all of this, like, and Googling and talking to ChatGPT? It won't work, because it's not put together to give you that clarity. It may just confuse you more. It may give you some clarity, but it's like going online and getting all the content is like getting all the pieces to the jigsaw puzzle. But then it takes forever to take all of those pieces and kind of paint a picture. What we do as coaches is we curate all that information and we present it to you so you can get it quick and fast, understand it. We're there to guide you. If you don't understand something, it's just like a teacher in a classroom, right? We explain it to you so that you do understand it, and then you can move on to the next concept and the next concept. And it's done, just like in a textbook, it's done where we do this first, that next, and it makes sense. And there's a process and there's structure, and it's easier. So we can accelerate your journey in the real estate world. At the same time, we're minimizing your risk, because now you have education and you've got some support as well to get that validation, which is a big part of getting that coaching and that mentorship, is getting validated that, okay, this is the next step. Is this what I'm supposed to do, Danielle? Well, you could do this or that. What feels right for you? Okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, go ahead, right? And if I see any red flags, I'm going to tell you, and that gives you, it's almost like a security blanket. Having said that, though, I do feel that we're going to get to a point where I can go into AI and say, hey, AI, I want to get into flipping houses. Can you map out for me? And we're already there, to be honest. Yeah. Can you map out for me all the steps I need to do, go in detail? And then if you're really good at prompting, if you're really good with AI, you can get in there and then get into the nitty gritty and say, okay, well, I'm going to do this phase right now. Can you break that down for me? I need to get educated first. Tell me what I need to know. Tell me what all the risks. If you're really good at prompting, you can get everything you need. And you probably get it better than what I'll tell you, truthfully. So I am worried.
The big asterisk, if you're really good at prompting, though.
If you're really good at prompting, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah, so if you don't know what to ask,
that's it,
right?
I was dealing with a big AI project the other day, or yesterday and this morning, and the questions that I was asking to get the answer is why it produced exactly what I need, but not everybody knew those questions. So anyways, keep going.
100%. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, like, if you're really good at prompting, but even then, you can prompt ChatGPT or Claude or whoever you want to use, Gemini, a Copilot, like they're all, you can prompt them and say, hey, look, like, I've never done this before. What else should I know?
Right.
What else should, so like, there are ways you know.
You can even, okay, that's fair, yeah.
Okay, so like, I've never done this before, get very detailed. And then what else should I know? What else should I know? And then you ask that. That's a tip for anybody who wants to use AI. Ask it 3 times. What else should I know? What did I miss? And if you ask it 3 times, my rule of 3, you can go deeper than that. But at least with 3, you'd be like, holy crap.
Your AI is just going to start spitting out 3.
Yeah,
it's going
Well, I mean, you can actually write your AI to actually do that now. And by the way, here's another quick tip about AI. I ask AI every time I prompt it to triple check its information before giving it to me.
Right.
Because it is wrong. People don't think it's ever wrong. It is wrong. And listen, I'm in real estate. I ask it things and it comes back to me and I'm like, oh no, that was wrong. Can you double check that? And like, oh, sorry, Danielle. And it has been wrong more often than I'm comfortable with. So now my habit is I ask it to triple check every time it gives me information.
And people also got to remember that AI generally is a yes man. It will agree with you more often than not. You have to tell it to challenge me, push me. Am I missing something? Is there another perspective? So
100%.
We've seen that a few times with people who are like, well, Kyle, I actually looked that up and here's my ChatGPT response. I said, well, try this question. Oh, really? That's the exact same That's the exact opposite answer. Well, it agreed with the question that it asked. So anyways.
Yeah, because you got to be really careful that you're not putting the answer in the question.
Right.
And a lot of people make that mistake. They're like, hey, I want to do this and I want to use XYZ. Will that make sense? And then it'll just say, oh yeah, that'll totally work.
Yeah.
Now, it's not actually digging for you. You have to make it think for you.
Right.
But in any event, coming back to the question, I think with AI, I am a little bit concerned, because AI is only going to get better. As much as we're saying what we're saying, it is getting, so there's an acronym out there, KISS acronym, everybody's heard it. I call it Keep It Super Simple.
It's a different way than I heard, but
I've changed it. There's
I like
certain
yours.
things.
Yours is a little nicer.
Well, and that's why, right?
Yeah.
So we call it keep it super simple. And I think AI is going in that direction too, so that pretty much anybody at any level can use AI effectively. And that will be problematic for us on the education side. So what we want to do, here's where I'm not worried, because having somebody come to me and say, hey, Danielle, this is what I'm thinking, and then I can guide them, that'll never be replaced. And the other thing is accountability will never be replaced. So when I'm doing one-on-one coaching, even when we do our flagship program, which is in a group setting, I'm calling people out. Did you do your homework? Did you do this? What are you working on right now? And I called it the ABCs of coaching. When I started putting structure around my coaching, it was always the ABCs of coaching. What is that, Danielle? It's accountability-based coaching. Why did I set that up? Because I spent over 100, like I'm in the 6 digits. I don't want to actually have never really calculated. I stopped after I got over 100K.
I just keep saying that too, but it's
Right?
a lot more than that.
I don't want to know actually how much I've invested, but you know, in our own coaching, and the biggest thing that I found for me was the accountability part of the one-on-one coaching was the most valuable. And so my coaching has always been around that principle, is I'm going to kick you in the behind and make sure you're doing the thing, because I know if you're not doing the thing, you're not going to get there. And so that accountability-based coaching, even with the humanoids that are coming out with, you know, ChatGPT as the brain, they're going to be in your house one day and it's not that far away. They're going to do everything. I can have my humanoid tell me I need to do this, this, and that every day, but I can tell it to F off if I don't want to do it.
Right.
A coach is going to be a lot harder when a coach is saying, hey, chop, chop, right? So now we got the human factor. I can tell a piece of machinery anything I want. I can be obscene with it, tell it to go away, and I can control that, but you can't control your coach. And you can't control telling them to go away when you've invested into them and you want to get a return on it. Because I'm going to tell you, look, I'm here to do what you've invested in me to do. If you don't do the work, it's not hurting me, it's going to hurt you. Is that really what you want to do? Or did you want to reach your goals? Because I'm here to help you get there.
Right.
And let's do this. So that part of the coaching I'm not concerned about, but the landscape for coaching is going to change. The reason why there's so little coaches left is because most of them didn't have structure, did it only because they were doing it for their own purposes. They didn't have, they really, either they didn't enjoy it. I mean, I love helping people. Corey's all about helping people. We want to make sure that we're spreading, I don't know, it's kind of like a purpose now. It's like we want to enrich. Because if I'm helping you get into a property and build a portfolio, take ownership of your financial situation, have a better retirement, I'm not just helping you, Kyle. I'm helping your wife. I'm helping your kids, maybe your parents, because you get to a point where maybe you can buy your parents or pay for their old folks' home. You know what I'm saying? So, I know I'm enriching your network, not just you. And I'm not doing it, you're doing it, but I have a small part in that. Right. And so it is a purpose. It's purpose driven for us more than it is anything else. I'll tell you, I mean, you've done coaching too. The returns on that, I get better returns being in real estate than I do coaching. So.
Oh yeah, my coaching right now is, there's no money in the coaching that I do. I'm a glorified volunteer at this point.
Yeah. But you know what? At the end of the day, the reason, like I said, the other coaches kind of disappeared because they either didn't love it, they didn't have good structure, they didn't have the proper business around it. When it comes to business, you have to have marketing, you have to have lead flow. There's all kinds of other things that are going on in that. But it is it is a parallel with what we're doing, a vertical with what we're doing in real estate. And so, I've paused real estate while I'm building this business, because building a business is not easy.
And I want to talk to you about
In a
real estate.
recession.
Yeah, and it is a recession. And it's funny. In 2022, we started seeing problems in the real estate market and in private lending and defaults. For years, it's not until I would say the last couple months where I've really started saying, like, guys, the economy is a problem. Like, there was some people who made mistakes and there was people who did stupid things and all that stuff, but I never really pointed at the economy. Like, we're in a recession. We do not have a good economy. We don't have, like, that's a real problem. But I want to go, I want to get your real estate take. I want to be mindful of time here. I want to get your real estate take. We're talking about the economy. I'll tell you where I'm at.
Yeah.
We're here or here. Are we here? Are we here? I'm not sure. That's my thought. I don't think it's going to be a quick ride up. I think it's going to be a slow grind. That's where I'm at. Love to hear your insight.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. However, we thought last year, I thought we were we've been in the trough for a while.
Yep.
I honestly thought we were getting close to the bottom last year, and I was humbled with there's things that happened coming into 25. We called it Thrive in 25. Like, we did our annual, end of year kind of new year webinar, and it was Thrive in 25. And we were very optimistic about 25. I think you were, everybody really was. And I don't want to throw politics in there, but Trump came into play, and then there was the tariffs and all this other stuff that was happening that these are things that we cannot control, and I do feel that it was a massive negative impact on, I do feel that if there was somebody else in office at that time, if it wasn't for the tariffs, I do think that we might have had a bit of a comeback last year.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And then since then, it's just been one thing after another. And the tariffs are still an issue. Nobody's talking about it, but it's still an issue. Now we got the war. We've got still Trump. So, these are just factors that we can't control. So what do we do in the meantime? We work with what we got. Right now, people are scared. They're not spending. People have some insecurities around their jobs, and rightfully so. There's a lot of layoffs. Why is that? Because businesses are struggling. Businesses are struggling, then layoffs are definitely a potential, and they have happened, and they've happened in massive organizations. When you have a recession, the biggest thing that businesses are going to do, they're going to trim the fat. When things are good, we've all done it. Like, I've had to do this too. What happens is when there's money flowing and business is good, you just spend and you pay, you hire, and you're paying lots in labor costs, but it's okay because you've got money coming in and flowing, right? But then when the banks start closing up their wallets, interest rates go up, your debt servicing goes up. Now all of a sudden there's not enough cash flow to cover all the costs. So now what do? Biggest cost on a line item for a business is labor and marketing. And those are the two things that people are going to cut back on. And if they cut back on labor, now everybody, you're just running a leaner business, but now you have less people out in the economy who can spend money. Less people who can buy houses, and less people spending money means more businesses that are going to be in trouble because there's less money flowing. And with the interest rates going up the way they did, people don't have the disposable money that they used to either. So that's why, we've had this recession. Now, how long is it going to last? Which was your question. I always said, we can go back to other podcasts I've been on through COVID, and everybody was like, happy COVID, and everybody thought at the beginning when we had the shutdown, it's like, oh, real estate's going to seize up, like it's going to be done. And then 2 months later, everything opened up, was hotter than it ever was. And I said, look, the government's printing money. Wait till they're done printing money. That's where the ball is going to drop. And sure enough, that's what happened. So, moving forward to where we are now, I still think I'm really shocked. I will say I'm actually shocked that the prices are still softening, but it makes sense and I see why. And it's because of these other factors that kind of came into play. How much softer is it going to go? Yeah, I don't think we're out of the woods yet.
No.
And I 100% agree with you that it will be a slow rise. Anytime you see a proper recession, and I get really upset when people say, like, We had the Ontario Fair Housing Plan that came in, which was some government regulation that came in 2017, and it had a bunch of stuff in there that negatively impacted the real estate industry. And what happened is like everything went down and then it popped back up in 6 months. You remember that, like people were walking away from their big deposits on, pre-con because they couldn't qualify, and it was terrible, but it was a 6-month blip. That was not a recession. There's been COVID also, not a recession. What we're in now is a recession, not during COVID, that 2-month, shutdown. And this is a recession by definition of everything that we're going through. And anytime there's a recessionary state, it takes 5 to 8 years before you just flatline. You go down and then you flatline. And then it's a really slow coming back up. Why? Because people need to recover. People need to gain confidence. People need to replenish their savings. And that takes time. It takes a lot of time. And the government needs to figure out what they're doing. If they're going to increase rates, lower rates, what are they doing, right? So that really impacts on the consumer confidence. And the consumer confidence, when it's so depleted the way it is now, it takes time to come back. It definitely takes time to come back.
I think that's even if the math changes quicker, the sentiment.
It takes time.
It takes time. People have rode that roller coaster the last couple of years. So even if it starts to feel really good real fast, it's going to take time for them to say, is somebody going to tweet something that's going to cause another problem? Is something else going to happen? So it's going to be slow. It's
100%.
But at the end of the day, I look at that. People, my friends that are like less into real estate, they're like, oh, I bet you're hoping things go crazy again. No, 3 to 5% a year appreciation. Yeah. 60 days on or 30 days on market, 60-day close, like normal, predictable balance. Like that's what I want. When 2015, that's when I started, and that's what it was. You listed a house, it took 30 days to get an offer. You got a 10-day conditional period, you closed in 60.
Yep.
You bought a year later, it was up 3 to 5%. You fixed it up, maybe 10. That's a normal, healthy market, and that's what I'm looking for. So
I agree, and that's the thing. When we had, and everybody said this, oh, when's the bubble going to burst? When is the bubble going to burst? When's it going to? Well, when it's a crazy market, bubble's going to burst. It's not steady, and so that balanced market, I think, is what most investors look for. Is predictable, and there's less risk, and it gives options, and it keeps the doors open for business. When you have that, where we are now, we're not open for business, which is kind of in the gutter. And when you're at the top of the mountain, you're not open for business either, because everybody's pushing everybody off the mountain. Like you've got the multiple offer situation, you got overpaying for properties. Like it's just not a fun space to be in. And then you got people that are, halfway up the mountain, the normal folk that want to also invest or maybe put an offer on a property and they can't, either because they can't put they got to put an offer blind without any conditions, and that's just not something that they can do. I can do that, you can do that, but the average person can't do that. And so unless they're willing to take a lot of risk. And so yeah, definitely the balanced market is where we want to be, 100%.
Yeah, I love it. I want to be mindful of time here, so I want to get to the hard truth.
And I think
go ahead.
2 to 3 years before we get there.
And I don't think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I really don't.
I'd be leaning more in the 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3.
And it's always the age-old question, how's the market? Well, what market? Toronto condo market? Yeah. Could be a little bit longer. A nice single detached house in Kitchener that's priced well in a nice area in a good school district, probably going to be okay. So, right, like what segment of the market? $1 million or multi-million dollar luxury homes? I'm not sure, right? So how's the market really depends on the asset classes as well. Some will recover quicker than others.
People forget this is an industry. And when you're talking about an industry, there are different funnels or different facets of that industry. You can't just put a blanket comment or a blanket statement on an industry. You really have to narrow it down to actually be accurate.
Yeah, we have a real estate roundtable in the office here. And it's funny, how's the market? Well, I deal with first-time home buyers between $500,000 and $600,000. It's multiples. It's multiples today. What are we? May 2026. Other people are like, "What are you multiples? What are you talking about? I'm in the luxury market. There's nothing. We've been on market for 8 months. We barely had a showing." Yeah. So what section of the market? So hard truth. So we're going to do 2. So the first one is, what is the hard truth you have for a brand new real estate investor here in May 2026? Maybe they own their house, but they've never invested in real estate. They bought a house personally, maybe they haven't, but they've never actually taken money to invest in real estate. What is the hard truth that person needs to know?
With every day you don't buy a property, you're losing money.
Okay.
At the end of the day, there's a saying in real estate that the best time to buy real estate was yesterday. The second best time to buy real estate is today. And the reason for that is because of the appreciation, the principal pay down. Even though we're not appreciating right now, it's very flat. And there's maybe, depending on the market, depending on the sector, there is some softening going on. But if you have money in the bank and it's not invested, or it's not invested well, you are losing money. And if you are thinking about into real estate, you're never going to get there unless you take action. And that's at the end of, nobody makes money for free. Yeah, I get so frustrated with this. Do the work and you'll get a return, right? And so stop talking about doing it. If there's something that you're actually interested in doing, then go ahead, make a move, pick up the phone, talk to somebody who's in it. Maybe your uncle is invested. Everybody knows somebody who has rental properties. I shouldn't say everybody, but you know somebody, you might know of somebody who knows somebody. Make that phone call. Watch YouTube videos, watch podcasts, reach out to a realtor, reach out to a mentor, go to a networking event and just start doing something to make it happen. But it's really frustrating when people are like, yeah, I've been wanting to invest, and they've been having that conversation with themselves for 4 or 5 years. And that 4 or 5 years, imagine if they bought a property 5 years ago, right? And they'd have all that principal pay down. They'd have some equity built up.
Not even when the market went up or down or
forget
whatever
about
happened,
that.
just principal pay down.
Principal pay down. Because if it's
As long as they didn't take a variable.
yeah, right. But if it's a buy and hold, it's a long term when you're investing based on principles and the fundamentals in real estate, right? And it's a long term investment. You don't really look at the up and down. You're only looking at the up and down when you're looking, 1, to refinance, or 2, you want to sell because you want to reinvest it into something else. So, but if you're just holding and the property is holding itself, you're getting that principal pay down. And hopefully you'll get some appreciation. If you didn't get it today, hopefully you'll get it tomorrow. But at the end of it, if you're not investing now, you're losing money.
Okay, love that. And we're going to do a second hard truth. We're going to talk more to somebody who's maybe been in it for a few years. Maybe they got 5 properties, a handful of properties, whatever it is, and they either feel like they need to or they want to scale and grow. What's the hard truth for that person?
Yeah, so the lack of knowledge is going to really be your ceiling. The lack of knowledge, the lack of network, and you're not going to get there at that level until you start speaking with professionals who are beyond that level. So you need somebody who's already done it. You need somebody who's got a proper business structure with that many properties. Should I be in a corp? Should it be personal? Should I have multiple corps? Should I raise money and do JV partnerships? Should I do private money? Like, there are things. Should I sell? Right now I've got a client that's actually, the conversation we're having right now is, should I sell and reallocate? And when it comes to real estate investing, it is a definite question that people overlook because they think, okay, I've got this property, it took a lot of work, it's done, it's stable, and I'm just going to leave it now. But if you're leaving money on the table, if it's underproducing because maybe it's got a long-term tenant in there and maybe you're not getting as much rent as you can, maybe there's a lot of capex that's coming up that you don't want to, because if you're putting a lot of capital expenditures, like you need a roof and you need to maybe waterproof or whatever it is you need to do to that property, maybe you might want to sell that property and reallocate that into, because your goals, let's tie that back up to the beginning.
All the way to the end.
Right? Let's put a little bow on that, because your goals as you're growing are gonna change. The goalposts when it comes to life are not on a football field. They're not in one spot and they just sit there. That is not how it works. In life, the goalposts are constantly moving. And so what we want to be aware of is, okay, when my goal is like, I just want to have a primary residence. I want to pay for my own property. I don't want to pay somebody else's mortgage. That's my first goal. That was mine.
Right.
I ended up getting 2 properties only because I didn't know how to split. I did not know how to take a chainsaw and cut a house in half with my best friend. So we got 2, right? But then it was like, oh, what are we doing now? Okay, so now I got the bug, right? And I kept going with that. But what happened was the goalpost kept moving for me. And that's what's going to happen to you and anybody else until you get to a point where you're like, you know what, I'm comfortable. And maybe you're just good, right? You've gotten there with your career. Careers are another thing. It's the same thing. You start building up the ladder. You want to go here, you want to go there, you want to go there. And then eventually like, oh, I'm good. I got it figured out now.
Yeah.
Right? And so with the goals, when you're investing in real estate, so you buy the first property, it's your primary, then you're like, well, I want to buy another one so that I can have something in retirement. It's going to help fund my retirement. Great. You buy another one. But then you're like, oh, I think I know how to do this. Let me buy a third one. But you get to a point where you're going to hit a ceiling because you don't know what you don't know. You're going to get into the more complex stuff. And does it make sense to sell and reallocate it into a multifamily so you can better qualify and you can continue to grow? Should you start working with a JV partner? Should you start working with maybe a business partner who's already there? Like, those are serious questions to start asking so you can break through that glass ceiling. But that is a whole new animal. It's like going from residential real estate to commercial real estate. It's a whole different animal. And whether it's right for you, like the conversation I'm having right now with another student is what she's done with her husband is all small single family homes, and pushed into conversions and adding an extra units worked very well for her. But now we're getting into that financing ceiling and it's like, well, should I do multifamily? And they're not sure they're kind of uncomfortable. I'm like, just because that's something you can do doesn't mean you should.
Right.
So let's sit down and see, like, maybe this is your jam and you just need to find a lender that will do asset-based lending based on your portfolio and not what you do, and start looking at it, underwriting it from a commercial perspective. So that is also an option, but you don't know what you don't know. So if somebody wants to scale, I say have at it, but don't do it without the knowledge. And maybe at that point you need to talk to professionals, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a mortgage broker, whether it's an accountant that you're going to need at that point as well. So, and then just start having those conversations with them. Start building that out.
Make sure you interview 3.
Rule of 3. Rule of 3.
That's amazing, Danielle. So much information, so much value. I think our audience, all 12 of them, are going to love this. They're going to get so much value from it. I know I always love our conversation. I feel like we just talk, kind of rap about different things, and I think it was really, really good. So really appreciate everyone for taking the time. We'll make sure we share Danielle's contact information, your coaching program, if anyone's interested. And yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, follow to get more content, and check out the next episode.
Yeah. High five.